Yo, what up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, so I was standing here and I was watching Aaron McIntyre's new joint, right? And I'll be honest with you, I think y'all are about ready to have the conversation that we've been having for probably about, I don't know, 3, 4 years now, something like that. Man, listen, we're always way ahead of the game out here. Just it is what it is because we go, well, what's the logical conclusion to all this? And nations, cultures, things of this nature, right? So we are going to look at, Aaron McIntyre's new video, right? And we're going to like listen to some of the stuff he has to say. We're gonna break it down a little bit, and then we're gonna get into like some weeds about some of this shit. So let's, without further ado, like let's get into his shit.
On religion as the key binding agent for civilizational blocks, which I think is a reasonable point. The thing being is that the identity of nations can shift somewhat. It's not hard built on just one thing. It's not simply a relation, a familial relation. It's not simply language. It's not simply religion. It's not simply folkways. But all of these things tend to define what a nation is. And the idea that a nation and a state, that a nation and a government are the same thing is not necessarily true throughout most of history. It's relatively new. In fact, one of the big things that happened over, after World War I and the disillusionment of, the dismantling of so many of these kingdoms was to create a lot of nation states, which seemed like a good idea at the time. Every people gets its own state, and then every people has its own self-determination. The nation and the state become the same thing. You're a group of people, you'll have a common language, common heritage, common culture, common religion. You see the world the same way, and now you have self-determination because you're also a state. So that is the nation state, right? But what has happened is that now we have focused and we've created the state as the defining feature of what the actual people are. And that is, ironically, in many ways, somewhat fascist. Not to be too particular about the term, but it subordinates the identity into the state rather than the organic identity of the people.
All right, so let's discuss this a little bit because I think it's important, right? So this is my map of what I think the United States nations actually are, because the United States is not a nation. Now, my man's J.D. Vance, which is who all this is about, right? And this is what this conversation was about on Aaron McIntyre's channel, right? He's an Appalachian. He's one of us, right? I'm an Appalachian too. Like, I'll be honest with you, I damn near got choked up when the motherfucker started talking, at the RNC. So, like, I'm behind this dude 1,000,000%. That's kind of my mentality because he's one of us. Is what it is. I haven't had real representation in government in many, many, many years. Right now, with that being understood, let's have a conversation about like why it is these people have. Well, let's set some terms first, right? Okay, so culture. What is culture? Right, a culture is the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or a social group. Right. This is very simple. Right. So where does culture come from? Right. This is why they have such a problem with these things. Right. This is from Ask Anthropology on the Reddit or whatever it is. I just looked it up on the Google thing, and it kind of really puts it into here, right? Do we know where culture comes from? Can it even be defined? Clearly, among academics, does geography play a role in determining and creating cultures or certain cultural culture characteristics? The reason why I ask is I'm having a hard time separating my own bias that heavily favors determinism and thus ecological determinism. I get it, think it sounds problematic, and it's been used in past and racist theories, but how can environment and culture be treated as two separate factors when in my head they are indeed one? In my opinion, culture is something that humans create, and things that we create are a result of our upbringing, environment, nature, but also the people and societies we interact with, nurture, which is also affected by geography, since rivers, mountains, and other features can block people from knowing other types of people, for instance. So if cultures were a sort of a mathematical equation, it would at least partially be a function of one's environment, and thus be redundant to say that culture and environment are similar. Environment is kind of like the parent, while culture is kind of like the child. I get that I think it appears to come to close to archaic 60s era anthropology's way of thinking, which is why I'm asking, what am I missing, if anything? Right. So This kid's 100% on, right? 1,000,000% he's on point here. Because your culture comes from, you know what I mean, your environmental background. All cultures are formed off of environments. So, like, you know, if you live near the ocean, you know what I mean, you're going to have like a much more fishing based, open attitude. You can do more trade. You live in the mountains, you're going to be much less trusting because you're going to be much more insular, right? Much harder Scrabble type of life. Harder way of earning a living, harder way of like being able to eat, right? Because like not as many things grow in the mountains, which is why like Afghanistan doesn't have like a proper nation state, doesn't have a real government. Why? Because it's mountain people. Mountain people have a very hard time being governed, right, and working together because they're very insular, right? When you're on the plains, you're going to have the type of people who, you know what I mean, are going to be much more industrious, much more long-term thinking because like you have to like plant and then wait. You have to raise cattle on a long-term basis. You have to plan long-term for everything you do. This is, you know what I mean, why like they tend to beat out everybody else. So with that being understood, right, like this is where culture comes from. Now, what is, you know what I'm saying, a nation? A nation is a large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or region. It's a very good definition. Actually, I went and looked up nation on like Webster's, and they were like, it's a people or it's a group of people who have shared who may be a collection of nationalities. Like the fuck, Brett, we can't do that. All right, no, this is what a nation is. A nation is a people who have a shared culture, heritage, language. I'm trying to think here. Dialect, art, food, geography, right? Again, this is what a nation is, right? And this is why America, right, as a whole, is not one nation. Because America is not one geography. America is a continent, okay? This is a continent. The United States government is a fucking empire, right, on this continent. What is a state? The civil government of a country. That's what a state is. Okay? State comes from, it actually wasn't used in the term of being a government until Machiavelli in the 1580s, right? It is what Florenzi and Noble said, the state of my economy, right? This is where like the state idea comes from. That's why like states tend to care about economics, because that's ultimately what it is. It's just a bunch of people who are managing the finances and managing their own finances and being nobles of an area. The government class, the management class are nobles of our fucking society, right? That's what a state is. What is a country? An indefinite, usually extended expanse of land, the land of a person's birth, residency, or citizenship, a political state or nation or its territory. A country is just a geography. It's just a land. That's what a country is. All right. A nation is not a country. A state is not a country. A country is not a state. It's not a nation. These are three different fucking things. Right. So I looked up how is culture developed, right? Because in order to understand like what a nation is, you have to understand where a culture comes from. Culture is developed through social interaction, the shared assumptions, understandings being held by a group of people. It is created as individuals and groups engage in sense making when interpreting their experiences and interactions in various environments. Culture is subjective and constructed through interactions among people and environments. It is influenced by societal, organizational, and individual level cultures in multiple cultural settings. Culture is both reproduced and developed through the creative process that led to cultural products. It is the result of historical accumulation of designs for living combined with the biological design of our species. Culture is also influenced by the function it performs at a local level to facilitate the organization and functioning of a post-industrial society. Overall, the culture is a dynamic, complex, and malleable process that is constantly evolving and shaped by interactions and experiences. Now, once you understand all of this, right, what you have to understand is that the reason why all these people have such a major fucking issue with guys like J.D. Vance saying like, hey, look, I want my family to be buried in the same place where my family members have been buried for 6 generations, is because these people want to divorce themselves from their nation and their culture, right? This is the essence of liberalism, right? And classical liberalism, all liberalism, right? The Enlightenment as a whole comes from the merchants and the upper class nobles' children who wanted to be able to not be tied to their area and land. And I understand, okay, as a man who I was born as an Appalachian. I was born as a mountain person. I was born, as an Italian. I was born as all these things. And being thrown into a situation where all of a sudden I have to deal with all these people who are not these things constantly, right? And who always want to leave these things. See, I was tailor built for what I am today, but everybody else was not. And they try to divorce it so they can go become coders. You get what I'm saying? Right? Like, all these people don't want to be tied to who they are. They don't want to be stuck in their area. They feel like it's stifling, right? Because they know there's more out here. But the truth is once they get old enough and they fucking, they end up collecting, some life experience, they go, oh, I want to go back there because I miss it. And this is what I was supposed to be. And see, it's fucking dumb, right? In the end of the day, you're fighting your own nature as a human being, right? But these people don't understand that because they're too young and they're still caught up in the idea that they can be whatever they want. Because they see guys like Bill Maher, right, who's from New Jersey, living in LA, out here, being single and fucking all the broads and not having no kids. They don't understand that they can't be Bill Maher. There can only be one Bill Maher. There can only be so many clowns. Even fucking Bill Maher said this. He said, not everybody can be the clown. Not everybody can be me, right? There's not that many of them motherfuckers needed in the end of the day. So that's kind of where we are. And that's the mentality. And this is the issue that we have, is that everybody wants to be something more than what they are, right? And you can't be sometimes. You need to be like who you are as a human being. And it's not a bad thing to be that person. It's not a bad thing to be a human. It's not a bad thing to be, what you were born as. It's not a bad thing to embrace your ancestry. But it is a bad thing when it comes to the governments who want to be able to just have human beings be these resources. I know you've heard that term human resources before. If human resources start giving a shit about being humans and care about where they live and care about their people and care about their culture, that fucks the entire thing up. I've been saying this for years. The only solution to all this shit that we're fucking suffering right now is literally racism. It's a hard fucking thing to grasp, right? It's a hard road to go, but it'll break everything. Because all of a sudden now you have something that they can't add into their equation because it doesn't make any sense in their equation. Because it doesn't make financial sense. If you're willing to throw away the money, right? And that's the big thing, is throwing away the money. Go, I don't care about the money. I care about my family. I care about my culture, my heritage. I care about my fucking kids. I care about my grandkids. I'm not doing this for me. All of a sudden, the whole shit gets fucked. And that's tough, right? That's a hard thing, right? And the answer, really, in the end of the day, is this, right? Is to embrace the fact that you are what you are. And this is what you should be represented by. And you should be represented by people who are like you and who were born around you, who are tied to that land. Rather than being represented by individuals who just went to college or get trained to be fucking managers. Now look, Tom Pease of Pnoid News. Y'all know the deal. Like, share, and subscribe, man. I'm the fuck up out of here. Peace.